Hello, and welcome to episode 188 of Prose. This week, help a dead woman, say farewell when faced with impending doom, and suffer for your choice in baked goods. Well, we are halfway into the so-called spooky season, and I do hope these tales today will help you indulge in all the seasonal fun. While you listen, please do consider heading to prospodcast.com. That's our one-stop shop for all things prose. There, you can find links to social media, the episodes, and to shop for swag. The show's Patreon is also there and, well, more. On social media, like and share away. Please say hi. It really does give me some verve and energy, and I love to see it. More importantly, please do consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing wherever you listen to your podcasts. Maybe you could even share it with a friend. Thanks for listening. Let's get to the tales, shall we? This week, we have Miss Obituary, Under My Skin, and the Brownie Children. Enjoy! Miss Obituary, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. Maureen Maud Monday, née Fitzwilliam, checked the obituary section of the local, state, and national newspapers every single day, without fail. Most would point to her recently hitting 76 to explain this practice, but Maureen had done this since she was roughly 11 years old. At 11, she had attended her first funeral. On a balmy Wednesday in July, she was made to put on her Sunday best and head to the Renfro Coughlin Funeral Home, along with her sister, brother, and parents. There, she had seen her great-aunt lying in a box with a grotesque smirk on her face. Her makeup was all wrong. Everything was all wrong. From that visitation on through the sweaty funeral the next day, 3 days of Maureen's life had disappeared into mourning Great Aunt Ida. Somewhere in all that dark hustling, bustling, and family time, the idea that Great Aunt Ida would not be coming back fully sunk in for Maureen. She began to ask her father how she could know that she wasn't dead. What if she were just a ghost? What if she woke up and went about her day only to find out that she had died the night before? Her mother called her fanciful and spat at her beskirted bottom. Her father, though, took her childish fears seriously. That Sunday after the funeral after church, he pulled out the fancy statewide Sunday paper. He proceeded to flip to the section where Great Aunt Ida's name was printed. He explained that this was her obituary. This is how the world knew that Great Aunt Ida had passed and gone on to heaven. Father read it to her verbatim, much like he did her evening stories. Spencefield, Arkansas. Ida Jean Fitzwilliam, née Spicer, 85, died Friday at her home in rural Spencefield. She is preceded in death by her husband, William Seamus Fitzwilliam, and her youngest son, John David. She is survived by her older son, William Ira, several grandchildren, and a host of great-grandchildren. She will be dearly missed. Rest in the loving hands of Jesus. Maureen took comfort in this diametric. She could use this standard to determine whether or not she was dead each and every day. Her father's showing her the obituaries helped her young mind break free from the spell of Great Aunt Ida's funeral and move on with her life. In a way. That first encounter with death didn't make her chicken. When she went out for the track team, she pushed harder and faster than any other girl or boy out on the field, even though girls weren't supposed to beat boys, and her body screamed at her the whole time. That first encounter with death did not turn her into a drooling idiot. She continued to blaze through elementary and middle school, junior high and high school. She was even the very first one in her family to go to a small college to learn to be a nurse's assistant. That first encounter with death did not leave her stores of humanity or drive to be in the moment fully exhausted. No. She taught Sunday school and volunteered at the local food bank and gave money and time to the battered women's shelter and marched for political causes and, well, she was one active woman that lived one very full life. All throughout that living, Maureen Maud Fitzwilliam, and then Maureen Maud Monday, bought a paper every single day from her 11th year on just to check those obituaries. Just because she wasn't chicken didn't mean that she didn't need to know if she were just a restless spirit lingering too long on Earth. Just because she wasn't broken and made a drooling idiot didn't mean that death wasn't ever present on her mind, causing her to look over her shoulder far more than she probably should, always hoping not to see him coming for her. She did not think he would be quite so gentlemanly as did Dickinson. Just because she could still be a good, vibrant woman didn't mean that she did not keep one eye warily on any dangers that those pursuits might allow to march close to her. The day of her wedding to Jeffrey Montgomery Monday, she checked the obituaries, and hers wasn't there. The day of both her children's births, she checked the obituaries, and hers wasn't there. Each day before work at the hospital in Faulkner, just a 20-minute drive outside of Spencefield, she checked the obituaries, and hers wasn't there. For 65 straight years, Maureen purchased a newspaper for the purpose of checking the obituaries, and hers was never there. Maureen had always hated Halloween. Her mother and father had called it a sinful holiday celebrating the devil himself. She wasn't sure that was the case, but she certainly did not like the ghosts, ghouls, and general spooky, death-centric focus on the celebrations, costumes, and decorations. She liked calling it All Hallows, as that had a bit more taste to it than the usual framing for the nasty day. That morning, she went to purchase candy from their local general store. When she went in, she had a dickens of a time finding her pocketbook, though, and then she couldn't quite make a decision on what to buy the little ones. It was like her mind wasn't working. The store was terrifyingly empty too, so she decided that was a sign just to hand out the fruit and Bible school pamphlets she already had at home, and she headed back to her little house. The streets going there and back again were all far too empty as well. She wondered at where on earth everyone was. More than likely, everyone in town had had the same idea. Relax with their families during the day so they could be good and ready for trick-or-treating, parades, and general revelry tonight. She sighed deeply as she pulled into her driveway. She missed her family now that Jeff was gone. Her son had passed far too young, and her daughter had moved far too far away with a man far too intent on being her whole world. Maureen exited her car, grabbing her newspaper that had been left on her lawn earlier that morning. It was so unlike her not to check the paper first thing. She always had checked the paper first thing. Today, though, her doing so didn't seem so important. She smiled at that. After 65 years, maybe she was beginning to relax about her long-held fear of dying and not knowing it. She tittered about the house a bit before going to brew some tea and finally thumbed through the obituaries. She quickly realized that tea didn't sound all that appetizing or refreshing, which was also quite odd. Tea was her lifeblood since before she could read or count. What an odd day this All Hallows was turning out to be. Maureen forewent the tea and sat down to dive in for a cursory glance for her name in that dreaded mournful section. She whistled a bit as she flipped toward the back of the paper, knowing every publication she had ever come across relegated the dearly departed somewhere where they would be least noticed. No one ever wanted to remind the living of their own impending demise, after all. Obituaries. There it was. A woman she knew from church. How sad. A young man and his younger brother killed in an accident. Downright tragic. A woman, 75, died. Maureen gagged reflexively. Her eyes widened. She went back to the full obit, reading carefully and not believing what she was seeing. Spencefield, Arkansas. Maureen Maud Monday, née Fitzwilliam, 75, died Friday at her home in rural Spencefield. She is preceded in death by her husband, Jeffrey Montgomery Monday, and her son, Jeffrey Ira. She is survived by her daughter, Renee Bell, and one grandchild, Sophia Renee Bentley. She read it again. Spencefield, Arkansas. Maureen Maud Monday, née Fitzwilliam, 75, died Friday at her home in rural Spencefield. She is preceded in death by her husband, Jeffrey Montgomery Monday, and her son, Jeffrey Ira. She is survived by her daughter, Renee Bell, and her grandchild, Sophia Renee Bentley.
She is survived by Spencefield, Arkansas. Maureen Maud Monday, née Fitzwilliam, 75, died Friday at her home in
Spencefield, Arkansas. Maureen Maud Monday, née Fitzwilliam, 75, died Friday at her home in rural Spencefield. She is preceded in death by her husband, Jeffrey Montgomery Monday, and her grandchild, Sophia Renee Bentley. She continued to read it over and over and over and over again. Maureen broke out of that loop and got up to go look outside, to go get some air. Her hips and her knees didn't pop. The sinking feeling already holding her in free fall intensified. She began to notice that things around her house weren't quite right. Decorations were gone, heirlooms were missing, papers were shuffled here and there. Her coat wasn't hanging. She made her way outside and to her neighbor Norma's house. The dog wasn't in the yard. The house stood empty. That was apparent long before she ever even got through the front gate to head up the stairs and knock on that old oak door. Maureen turned a slow 360, taking in the entire neighborhood. No children riding bicycles, no dogs barking, no cars going just a little too fast for her tastes. No birds singing in all the little bird baths and bird houses the quickly aging street's denizens put out for their little visitors. Her name was in the obituaries. Her name was in the obituaries. Her name was finally in the obituaries. Her father had told her that was how you knew for sure. She looked around again, doing another slow 360 turn. Doing another slow 360-degree turn. But what was all of this then? There were no pearly gates, no angels, no bearded apostles smiling to welcome her, no long-lost family members waiting for a celestial reunion. For better, there were no pointy-tailed, behooved demons dancing and prancing through flames and sulfur either. But this was nothingness. This was the shell of what life was for her, sans all of the meaning and vibrancy. She was utterly alone. This was emptiness. Maureen made her way back inside her house. She didn't know what to do. So she went ahead and began making her cup of tea. She noticed that the fragrant leaves she scooped into her little metal steeping ball didn't smell one bit. Even more emptiness, more leaching of the good from the world. Maureen sat back down, waiting to hear the kettle howl, and, for the first time since she was 11, flipped back to the front of the newspaper, desperately looking to read about the living. Thank you for listening to Miss Obituary, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. All sounds come from freesound.org, and all music comes from the Free Music Archive, found at freemusicarchive.org. These are all being used under CC 0 1.0 public domain dedication licenses. Next up, please stick around for Under My Skin. Under My Skin, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. Rhonda, I know in the writing of this it means that I have already admitted defeat, if not aloud and to the world, then to myself and indeed to you. I must apologize for leaving off of my writing you for, well, some time now. Excuses would come easily here at the end, but my own apathy born of my current situation is most to blame. My apologies are sincere, my reasons for failing you impotent, and now my time runs short. As you know, the apartment in Seoul was a major transition from my sprawling homes for my past few postings. The particle research of my youth and the generous stipends, grants, and livings spawned of them somehow evolved, or, in my own reading of the changes, devolved into my urban hell that I find myself in as I scratch away at this inexpensive, mass-produced stationery. Isn't it sad that letter writing itself has devolved into a quirk, a gas of the bored or pretentious? Once upon a yesteryear, penmanship was a high art. The elite of the world bled their fortunes to acquire the most exotic sheafs, the best stock envelopes, the thickest and shiniest waxes to be sealed with. What a tragedy. This deletion of a more deliberate means of communicating. The world has grown too fast-paced to calmly mirror one's heart onto pulped pine. But I digress. My goodbye. The apartment is a step down from the lifestyle I normally afford myself. Don't get me wrong, Rhonda. It is fancy. My own family and friends back home would think me a movie star if they saw the shining granite and stonework that frames the little place. Not to mention the proximity to such things as they have only seen in films, or in the comfort of their living rooms from their small television sets. As you already know, the actual move-in was relatively easy. Making those shifts is never fun, but moving does often provide an electricity given rise by the infinite avenues of possibility that await in a new place. The new yous you can be should you choose to make good on all those changes you've been building up in your heart and head. Wow. I'm getting to the point after moving so many times and advancing in years that I don't have the wherewithal to become those new people, though. It is exhausting. All of the subsequent details of the shift are honestly neither here nor there.
You have heard all of this from me ad nauseum at this point, you know. How's the new job? Same as the old. New faces, but more of the exact same day-to-day doings. How's the new place? Very nice. Too small, but a wonderful little flat. How's the new city? All cities are the same anymore, aren't they? One can eat, one can drink. One can pretend that the things to do are somehow different or more eclectic or more interesting in some way. But at the end of the day, the people of Paris, of London, of New York, of Sydney, of Mumbai, of Johannesburg, of Seoul, we are all just trying to fill a hole to distract us from our daily decay into oblivion. But again, how often have you heard that cynicism from my lips or from my pen? My doom seems to have me being more introspective, more thoughtful, and yet I find myself regurgitating my own tired musings for the millionth time rather than leaving you with some thought worthy of an end of consciousness. It was the apartment that did me in, not the nightlife. At first, I thought the strange tingling in the back of my head a headache or some impending cold. Rather quickly, I realized that my skin was mirroring the crawling in the back of my head. A slight tingle turned into a strange itch. The itch began to morph into a burn. The tingle itch burn very rapidly shifted into crawling. Then, I could see the movement I thought that I had felt actually meandering under my skin. Little lines of squirming, slithering somethings, wriggling and dancing in time to the tingle itch burn matched by a throbbing behind my eyes the likes of which I had never experienced. To call it a headache would be to give the pain a major disservice. It only took 2 weeks for the tingle itch burn to take over my every thought. At work, as I walked the streets, over dinner, during dates, while trying to sleep. The pain and discomfort utterly consumed me. Doctors told me there was nothing there. Colleagues told me they could see nothing in or on my skin. It continued to writhe in me all the same. I became it and it alone. So you see, Rhonda, I had to do this. I know that you'll be receiving this well after the news comes your way. Hell, it might even arrive after you've buried me, if things have gone poorly. The plan as it stands is for me to start with my feet. I've bought several surgical-grade scalpels and some numbing medications that, according to the web, will numb the immediate area without affecting my brain's functionality too quickly or too heavily. I've read of people doing surgery on themselves, and I am hoping that these tales aren't just fluff told and retold speaking into truth. From my feet, I'll do my other extremities, moving up to my knees and working my way up. Peeling my own skin back doesn't sound so appealing, that's for sure. But I fear that I can no longer live like this. I love you dearly and hope you can forgive the extreme nature of my actions. I know that we have not been as close as we once were these past few years. Distance and time get the better of us all, do they not? Just know that the thoughts of you have lessened my sufferings these last weeks. I did love you, Rhonda. I do love you. I must admit that I did not reach out to my family, so if you could let them know how things came to be, please do so. I know that is asking too much of you, but I fear I have no one else to ask. Distance and time have dismantled more than just our relationship. again, thank you for everything. For being you, for being mine for a time, for allowing me to be yours, for your vast intelligence, for your kind eyes, for everything. Really, Rhonda. Well, now I'm just prattling and procrastinating. May you smile always, even through the pain, my dear. I am off to my next adventure. Sincerely yours, Justin Kenton.
Thank you for listening to Under My Skin, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. All sounds you hear come from YouTube's free audio library. The tracks are being used under CC 01.0 public domain dedication licenses. Next up, stick around for some flash fiction horror. Oh, and brownies. The Brownie Children, an original short story by Jared I. McGee.
Dear God, Gerald, how did we let the time get away from us? It's not like we were having that much fun.
I don't know, but losing our cool will only cause us more problems, Rita. Let's just go fast, stay focused, and analyze this mess later.
I know too, Gerald, but what if we don't make it?
The silence that followed was not what Rita had been hoping for from her husband. For as long as she had known Gerald, he had been her protector. His 6'7" frame, thick arms, and booming voice had made her feel like she had her own Lancelot from their very first meeting. Not that she needed a knight to come save her. She was no misogynistically created maiden in need of saving. Still, she couldn't help but feel a bit more at ease, a bit more confident, not to mention that it turned her on. In his youth, Gerald had been quite the alpha male in all the best ways, avoiding the virulence and toxicity that a great many alpha types lean into. Seeing him try to be calm and try to ensure her that everything would be okay while his brow was drenched with sweat and his jaw was clenched to the point she thought his teeth would crack, it put her on edge. His confidence was counterfeit, and she knew it. They were going at least 85 on the 45-mile-per-hour rural highway to their home. Dangerously unsafe for this area. Between the curves and bends, deer and other fauna, loose gravel and patches of cracked asphalt, driving this recklessly was unacceptable on most days. But when occasion warrants. And this occasion certainly warranted.
It's 8:45. We're never gonna make it.
Through his gritted teeth, Gerald growl pleaded. I am trying, Rita. If we go off the road, we're definitely not going to make it. Relax and let me concentrate.
We've got to get home before the Brownie children arrive, Gerald. We've already rolled the dice by buying store-bought instead of baking them fresh. You know the warm ones keep them at bay for longer. They please them more.
I know, sweetheart, I know, but there's not much we can do at this point. I'll do my damnedest to get us there. Their discussion stopped there. Rita soaked in the silence, trying not to let her mind wander to what would happen if they really didn't make the 9 p.m. calling. Of course, they had never not made the calling. They had only ever heard of what happened to those that did not meet the tribute at the required time. Those little ones could do more damage to a body than she had ever thought possible. Seeing the, albeit partially censored, videos and photos of those that missed the calling was horrifying, and it certainly made one want to be on target for the hard time at which the little ones spanned out across the town. The Brownie children, as they had been dubbed early on, did not accept anything but variations on that baked treat. Cookies, cakes, pies, cobblers. None of those would do the trick. Many a slaughter scene had other sundry baked goods slapped and slathered around the pieces of bodies. Brownies, not blondies, was a popular t-shirt around town. Humor didn't precisely diffuse the horror of the situation, but being able to at least grin through the terror was something. Rita's frenetic thoughts came back to the present with the crunch of gravel and the complaints of the brakes as Gerald brought the car to an abrupt stop.
Go, Rita, go!
Gerald shouted, both of them rolling out of the car, not even bothering to close the doors as they could clearly see the 8:57 p.m. readout of their vehicle's calm, blue-lit digital clock. Rita fell, tripping over a small fallen limb that she did not see in the darkness, the damned motion sensor light from their front porch not coming on. Gerald stopped to help her up, and they continued to bolt for the front door. Rita with a bit of a limp from the gravel that was no doubt embedded in the skin of her knees and palms. Gerald had the keys ready, and they got into the front door in seconds. Though they'd never had this close of a call with the calling, they did both know what their routine was in putting the tribute out for the little ones. Rita placed a tray on the back porch, several feet from the sliding glass door. Gerald placed a tray on the front porch, even farther out. The clock began to chime with the 9 o'clock hour. They both leapt into their respective entryways, locked the doors, and backed toward one another, both sets of hands shaking uncontrollably. The bushes began to shake outside. The damned motion sensor light from their front porch still did not come on. The light from the back porch did not either. The lights in their house went dark.
Gerald?
Rita asked. The two turned to hold one another and heard voices, in tone from both outside and inside, mere feet away.
Store-bought?
Thank you for listening to The Brownie Children, an original short story, or if we're being honest, flash fiction story by me, Jared I. McGee. All music you hear comes from YouTube's free audio library. The tracks are being used under CC 01.0 Universal Public Domain Dedication licenses. I hope you've enjoyed the tales this week, and I hope you've enjoyed something a little closer to normal. As you all continue about your day, I hope that you will remember to love those around you, tell them that you do, and embrace this life as it is always stranger than fiction. See you in 2 weeks' time.